We've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, and we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
After 21 hours of negotiations, Vice President J.D. Vance departed Islamabad without a peace deal. President Trump says Iran wouldn't budge on nuclear weapons, and a blockade is now in effect. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Brian Brenberg, along with my co-hosts Taylor Riggs, Dagan McDowell, Jackie DeAngelis, and with us for the hour, Rosecliff founder and managing partner Mike Murphy. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is live, and the ceasefire announced just days ago is on life support.
So we have minesweepers there now. We have highly sophisticated underwater minesweepers, which are the latest and the greatest, but we're also bringing in more traditional minesweepers. And so I understand is the UK and a couple of other countries are sending minesweepers. A lot of countries don't have minesweepers.
U.S. forces are already working to clear mines in the Strait, and key regional players like Saudi Arabia are restoring pipeline capacity. President Trump says oil supertankers are now heading toward the Gulf of America. Is Iran's chokehold on global energy supplies finally loosening? Mike Murphy, I put that question to you. Are we in the beginning of the ending chapter of this saga in terms of energy supplies?
I think we're maybe not even just the beginning. I think we're moving along the way toward that. You see, it started with the United States becoming energy independent, but now I think what's happened here in Iran is forcing the building of pipelines that maybe weren't going to be built in the Middle East, and now forcing other ships to come to the United States to fill up. So, yes, this is going to be the beginning of the end for that stranglehold that Iran had.
What do you think, Dagan, about all these President Trump saying all these ships are headed to the Gulf of America? Like there's a repositioning of supply chains around energy. Do you think that's for real? Is that a meaningful move of the world saying, you know what, we're tired of depending on the Middle East. We want to change where we get our energy. What do you say?
It's real. This is Lawrence Simonetti delivered this to us this morning. There are 121 empty Aframax, Suezmax, and VLCC class size tankers. VLCC stands for Very Large Crude Carrier. They're making their way to the United States. This is from Tanker Trackers, and the map is from Marine Traffic. 68 of those 121 vessels are those very large crude carriers. They're big ones, capable of carrying 2 million barrels each. They're headed to Asia, China from the U.S. Gulf Coast once they're filled up. That journey takes 50 to 60 days. The journey from the Mideast to Asia takes 20, so less than half of that. But this is important to put into context. This is great. However, the United States is a net importer of oil. We are not a net exporter. If you look at all distillate products, that's a different story. But last year, we were a net importer, meaning we use more than we produce in crude oil by 2.2 million barrels a day. That excess comes from Canada. That is still the case this year. The weekly import-export crude numbers for the last week of March, we imported 6.45 million barrels per day. We exported 3.52. So they can come and get our oil, but we don't produce enough even to meet our needs. The reason we do export is because that is oil that is not used in our refineries. It has to do with where does the oil sit, what do our refineries need. It is definitely a good sign. But there's also one other thing to add in terms of, and this was something that someone brought up online over the weekend when that very map was reposted by someone called Roy Johnston that President Trump also reposted. The problem is the ton miles in a voyage to the U.S. versus the Persian Gulf. Ton miles is essentially the standard measure of shipping demand. You have to multiply the volume of cargo in tons by the distance it has traveled. Ton miles, it's not just export volumes when you're looking at shipping. You can realistically displace Persian Gulf supply in Asian markets, but it's the physics of distance that create a bottleneck in the actual. You basically need more ships in totality to get all of that crude oil that further distance. That's the essence of it. So we don't have enough ships in the world to get that much crude oil that distance. It's called ton miles.
I love that. I did not know.
The standard measure of shipping demand, you multiply the volume of cargo by the distance traveled. It captures the idea that moving oil is not just about how much you ship, but how far you got to ship it.
Okay, that is very interesting. I did not know ton miles. Jackie, I left on vacation last week. Sounded like we had a ceasefire.
Right.
Okay, we didn't quite have it yet, but I left thinking we're going to have one. I get back.
Blink and you miss it.
I don't know what you call this, but can I throw something at you?
Yeah.
I like, they're calling it a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. I like it. It feels like the right next step. Because instead of wondering if Iran's going to do something, we're just going to force their hand.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
And I think everybody was wondering what the ceasefire was all about, and we were trying to unpack it, get into the president's head, try to speculate a little bit last week. But what I was thinking about it was he has been procedurally going through motions as he set this all up, as they were entering conflict, and as he's been going through it. And exactly what I thought would happen happened. Vice President Vance and the team went to Pakistan. There was no deal. Nobody thought there was going to be a deal. There were two requirements. It was open up the strait, give up the nukes, maybe 2.5, and no more creating nukes in the future. And of course, they weren't going to agree to that. They didn't. But I think the president wanted to set the groundwork to explain to the American people and the world, we're going to go in and we're going to take the strait now. But here's why. We gave them every opportunity in the whole world to do the right thing, and they refused to do it. I mean, just think about going into the election and the first year of his presidency. You've got Democrats screaming fascist at every turn. Kamala Harris, sitting with Al Sharpton, was talking about how, joking, sort of mocking the president, saying that he decides that you're going to get this and you're going to get that and I'm going to take this. And, you know, if he had taken the straight first, like, right off the bat, which is what he ended up doing, that's what they would have said. Now, they will still continue to say it, but anybody with a reasonable brain will look at this and say he tried everything, and this was the next step. Now, as you look at the markets today, with the Dow down right now, let's see.
About 200.
Yeah, about 200. The NASDAQ is actually up, I believe, and the S&P 500 is up fractionally as well. The markets are saying this was where it needed to go. This is where it's going. We expected this to happen. And oil, to Dagan's point, is saying supplies are going to be a little bit tight as a result of this, so oil prices went up. This market action is exactly what I would expect. And after this announcement yesterday, I'm thinking to myself, if the market opens down or the futures are indicating we're going to be down 1,000 points, then the market doesn't like this. But that is not what happened here. So I think this is par for the course. And I think that he is doing the right thing. I think a lot of people think he's doing the right thing, and that the process and the procedure of this was all in lockstep.
The U.S. sent a couple destroyers through the strait. I thought that was a big deal because you wouldn't do that unless you felt like they were going to get through the strait just fine, okay? They're blockading the strait. Trump says we're going to destroy these swift or fast boats. They've got these Iranians fast attack boats. We're going to destroy those. So the U.S. is doing the dirty work. You go where you want with markets. I would just point out that the U.K. and France feel like the worst allies you could ever. They're like the people, when you go to dinner, Murphy, you never do this, but you go to dinner and they bring the bill to the table. They're the guys who do the really slow reach so that somebody else grabs it before they can get it. And they're like, oh, we would have loved to have gotten that. We'll hold a meeting about it now while you pay the bill. I think that stinks, but I think the president says, I don't really care. We're going to do this.
Yeah, I think that one of the best things that may come out of this, and you've mentioned this, is how we reevaluate our relationships with European members, if they're thinking about doing a more of a European NATO, and maybe our relationship with the Gulf states. And let's see sort of how fruitful all of this can be when we're thinking about redoing the world order. Speaking of world order, Brian, we came in and there were still all those calls. Ooh, bad U.S. dollar trade. Go EM, go international. Don't bet on America. The America trade is over. Remember those calls? They happened on Liberation Day. They happened again. Those trades are losing. America is back, at least when you look at the S&P 500. Jackie, I see your Dow, but I raised you a Dow that's down only because maybe Goldman Sachs is down, which we'll talk about later. If you're looking at S&P and the NASDAQ, markets are resilient. I come with 3 pieces of good news. The first up, December contracts for WTI and Brent are about 77.83. That's not as low as it could be, but it's not higher than it is today. So that gives me comfort 6 months from now. The markets are looking at this as de-escalating. Second point, if this blockade can cut off, according to my reports, Iranian oil of 1.5 million barrels a day. That's $150 million a day. At what point does all of that fresh revenue that they don't have get painful enough that they, and maybe China, who needs that Iranian oil, do want to come back to the negotiating table? Let's see. It's going to be a game of who blinks first in terms of who gets the most pain. Third and final point. We come into this year and we think conventional wisdom showed that we were thinking, was this economy slowing? Atlanta Fed GDP at 1.3%. Ew, that's gross. Stagflation. Ew, that's gross. Except what if I tell you that this economy, maybe we're not going on GDP, maybe we're not going on consumer spending, but we're going on corporate profits. Corporate profits, Brian, we kick off first quarter earnings today. Corporate profits might jump 15% year over year. That is the bottom lines of these companies jumping 15% year over year. That's not relative to low expectations. That is relative to literally what they did last year. Now it's backward looking. I want to hear what these CEOs are forecasting for the rest of the year. But for now, you could say that the economy, at least when it comes to the bottom line and the health of these corporations, are in this year. I think they're in it to win it. I think they're in this fight. And if profits aren't being eroded yet, I think that bears very good news.
I can answer the question about losing revenue from the Strait of Hormuz for Iran from Javier Blas at Bloomberg, oil analyst extraordinaire. He's like, you're looking at the limited empty oil tankers inside the Persian Gulf, plus Tehran's onshore storage. So production has basically all but ceased in the Persian Gulf region because they've got nowhere to store the oil. Iran has been able to export, but Iran will need to shut in its wells in about 10 to 15 days, the same process that its neighbors went through or faced 5 to 6 weeks ago. That 10 to 15 day time frame, will that prompt Iran to change its negotiating tactics and its negotiating approach? So
that's right.
Maybe 2 weeks.
Hit the revenue, see what happens.
Meanwhile, 6 weeks, that anniversary was on Saturday.
That came and
like
went.
This war
it came and went.
Longer.
Anniversaries, they come and go.